It's that time of year again.
You mean Shenanigans?
But our Shenanigans...
I mean, his Shenanigans.
And I don't just mean time for Disney to screw around with college football again.
Evil Shenanigans.
I'll pistol whip the next guy that says Shenanigans.
That's right. It's time again for SEC Shenanigans.
Oh.
And I'm your host, Ken Shumway. Now, this season has had an early overshadowing. From Coach Deion Prime Sanders taking the helm at Colorado, to the Pac-12 headed to the Pac-0, and in the SEC, everybody's clamoring about the 2024 edition of cattle and covered wagons. Week 1 saw several impressions on the field, including a couple of teams impersonating SEC teams. The Gators traveled to Salt Lake City to take on the Utes of Utah University. I'm not sure if it was the elevation or the lack of humidity, but the Utes made the Swamp Kings look like swamp jesters. Florida continues to lose its grip on the persona of the Lake Placid monster and cling ever tighter to the identity of Wally Gator. Ole Miss opened up their season with an absolute skull-dragging of Mercer. This game was such a runaway that in order to keep any excitement, they had to have Lane Kiffin's dog fetch the kicking tee. The offensive lineman Micah Pettis doing his best Magic Mike impression with a Mercer defender, and the snake-like stacking of cups by the students in the students section. Mississippi State opened up their season by remembering the late Mike Leach. The Nutty Professor will be missed, and the Bulldogs were one of the few teams without a quarterback conundrum, with the return of Will Rogers. And it was a slow go in the early part of the game with the break-in of a new head coach, a new offensive coordinator, and a new defensive coordinator. But it didn't take them long to find their rhythm, and they ended up putting a huge spread on the Lions and left them laying like Scar did Mufasa. And the reigning national champions, the Bulldogs of Georgia, took on UT Martin in their season opener. The Dogs have been facing a change at the quarterback position, with Stetson Bennett being drafted to the NFL. And like the other Bulldogs, they had issues in the early minutes also. Though we did see some new blood in new positions, but we still had to endure Kirby Smart's same old haircut. And Brock Bowers, who seems to be the reincarnation of Hunter Renfrow, this kid should be called All-State because the ball is in good hands with him. Tennessee kicked off their season at home against Virginia, and this was the Cavaliers' first game in 294 days since losing 3 teammates in a shooting. The Tennessee quarterback showed his talent with his howitzer of an arm and his fancy footwork as he threw for 2 and ran for 2 more touchdowns. The Vols were not cavalier with their beating of Virginia, especially with John Campbell Jr.'s blindside block in the end zone area. There seems to be a freeze warning down on the plains of Auburn. That's right, this was Hugh Freeze's first week at the helm of the Tigers. However, this week may have had something that put a damper on things with Beth Mowins calling the game. God, I wish I had a soundbite of Rick Burgess's impression of her. We get rid of Gary Danielson and we get Beth Mowins. Not so sure this is a great trade-off. Now, last season, starting QB Robbie Ashford showed out with 3 rushing touchdowns in their romping of the FBS last placeholder, Massachusetts. This gives Hugh Freeze his first win at Auburn, which also led us to learn that, like most of us other white guys, he can't dance. Arkansas hosted Western Carolina in their home opener. It seems like the Razorbacks now have quality receivers to aid returning quarterback KJ Jefferson. In their 56-13 rout, Arkansas showed that if they can stay healthy, they have the potential to be a contender to bring home the bacon in the West. And Jimbo keeps on fishing with A&M's money. With Bobby Petrino by his side as his new offensive coordinator, the Aggies blew past the Lobos of New Mexico. Now, while they did look good against what some would consider a lesser opponent, look for A&M to have their mettle tested soon. And also look for that buyout to be tested soon too. And LSU took on the Seminoles of Florida State as number 5 took on number 8. Jaden Daniels attempted his best Najee Harris impression, which left him quickly blitzkrieged by the Seminoles. And that was only overshadowed by the fact that the Tigers had a complete inability to cover the pass. I guess those air-conditioned helmets left them a little off their game. Maybe we should start calling them the Bougie Bayou Bengals. And this year's Foot and Mouth Award goes to head coach Brian Kelly after his post-game comments about execution. And Missouri ordered up a cupcake win for the week, but they seemed to struggle in the second half. In their 35-10 win over South Dakota, Coach Eli Drinkwitz made the decision to have returning QB Brady Cook play the first half and redshirt freshman Sam Horn play in the second. Now, while this decision did show a little promise, and it did, and it definitely gives the redshirt some reps and some experience in the game. But if past seasons are any indicator, look for Missouri to soon become their own worst enemy. And the Battle of the Carolinas goes to the Tar Heels, as North Carolina and South Carolina took each other on week 1. It looks as if Beamer Ball had an early season breakdown. At the post-game meeting on the field, North Carolina head coach Mack Brown pulled Shane Beamer in close and pulled him in by the neck, I might add. While I'm not sure what that conversation was, I really wish it went something like, "I prefer Miracle Whip on my chicken sandwich." And Alabama kicked off their season against Middle Tennessee State. And Bama looked to be playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. According to Lane Kiffin in his bedhead-riddled interview during media days, we can thank Paul Feinbaum for that. The Tide was also facing a hole at the quarterback position after the draft of Bryce Young. But Jalen Milroe quickly put any worries to bed. His 21-yard scramble off of a bad snap should have quelled any doubts about his abilities. Along with his receiver core, he was able to become the first QB in school history to tally 3 passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns in a single game. Backup quarterbacks in Notre Dame transfer Tyler Buckner and Ty Simpson both racked up rushing touchdowns of their own. And in a post-game interview, Coach Nick Saban revealed that he failed clairvoyance class. That does it for week 1 of SEC Shenanigans. Stay classy, SEC.